Hey guys, welcome to EuroLeague Fantasy Talks. In this episode, we will talk about BasketNews EuroLeague Fantasy and the preparation for round 11 of EuroLeague, and of course, most focus on budget growing. So this is how my team did last round. I got 193 fantasy points and 930k to our budget. And this is how much each individual player got me, with biggest gains from Milutinov, Fournier, and Petrushev with 294k. And for Kevin Punter, as I mentioned in my previous video, I was expecting for him to reduce our budget, although I wanted to get some fantasy points, but we didn't get neither, as he scored only 7.3 fantasy points in the loss against Paris. As you shortly will see, he has even worse stats now for price growing, so we will have to trade him out. Otherwise, all the other guys, even Chivezima too, with minus 5.5 fantasy points, if he wouldn't be put on the bench, he got us 10k to our budget. So even the risk keeping him didn't penalize me so much. So let's see how much each of the players need to score in the next round not to drop their price, and that's the numbers. For example, Devin Booker needs to score 10.2 fantasy points not to drop in value. Milutinov is safe with minus 22, assuming that he plays at least 1 second. Then his price will be adjusted and he should grow in price. Petrushev, his safe zone has at minus 34.8. Fournier minus 15 is good. Vezenkov, if he will score less than 19.4 fantasy points, he should drop in price. Edwards 12 is the zone, I would say. Kevin Punter 38.9, so that's a big number. It's not like it's impossible, but it has to be a rather big game for him to go that much, so of course I will trade him out. Mirotic is good with 5.9 fantasy points, so we will keep him. Metu doesn't have such good stats for price growing, so we will also have to trade him. And Thompson, if he will score 13.3, he would still keep his price. So he's like on the average. Don't expect to grow much price on him, but he's still a good one of the top guards at the moment while Larkin is injured. And let's go make those trades now. I will trade Kevin Punter because even if he might score in the next game, he should still drop his value, so I don't want that again in the next round. Also, I will trade Chimezima too because it's not so likely that he would score 20 fantasy points. And I want something better instead of Darius Thompson, so I will also trade him out. Now let's get 3 new players, and for my forward I will get Nigel Hayes-Davis from Fenerbahce. With all those injuries, even Coach Sharas confirmed in the post-game interview against Žalgiris that Hayes-Davis is their main guy, and of course we can see that in the stats. I actually wanted to pick Nigel in the previous round, but I didn't want to bet against Žalgiris defense, so therefore I didn't pick him. But now Fenerbahce will play against Virtus, who have the second worst defense, so now I don't feel any risk when picking Hayes-Davis. And for the price growing, even with minus 9.8, his price would still not drop, so can easily expect 15 or more fantasy points, if not 20 from him, and even more. So we pick him and we expect to get some nice gains from him. And for my first guard, I will pick Maledon from as well. We get Maledon back after a few rounds, as he has good price growing stats. With minus 6.6, his price would still not drop, and he will play in the French derby, and I'm pretty sure he will get his 28 minutes average, as he's the sole leader of his team. And also there are too many injuries for him not to get that playing time and those shots. And overall this season he's averaging 17 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 3.9 assists in EuroLeague games so far. So we have to get him back, as that small dump now seems to be over and he's back to his scoring ways. And for my last player, I will pick the one and only Mike James. Of course, we have to go with Mike James because he's one of the most reliable guards. He needs only 8.3 fantasy points not to drop in price. So of course, if he scores 0, he would drop his price, but he's in a great shape now. After the slow start of the season, he is now averaging 20.4 fantasy points in his last 3 EuroLeague games. And he will play at home in Monaco against Asvel, which shouldn't be too big of an issue for him to score big. It's also good to have Hayes-Davis because it will be 3 days of EuroLeague. In this round, it will be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So good to have Hayes-Davis for the captain for the first day. And then I have a lot of guys for the second day. I might have a couple too many, as I have only 2 guys for Friday. But it's good to have guys scattered throughout 3 days, so that you may to put the players that didn't score so well, to put them on the bench and swap with other players. I will see when it goes closer to the round if there is any injuries, if I should put Petrushev or Fournier in the starting 5, or also depends on Hayes-Davis performance. Otherwise, I recommend to take maybe a few more guys for the Thursday from Fenerbahce or from Virtus, like Isaiah Cordonier, for example. Otherwise, I will go with this team. Let's see if I will make any changes between bench and starting 5. Otherwise, I will go like this. And let's now check the top 10 players in each position, centers, forwards, and guards, how much they need to score not to drop their price. Top 10 centers for round 11. So these are top 10 centers, with top 3 being Lesort, Milutinov, and Booker. Of course, not all of them have great price-growing stats. For example, Sako played some minutes in the round 10, but now his stats are even worse. Let's see how he's recovering from the injury. So at least not for this round. But Milutinov has great stats. Lesor, he should get more against Žalgiris, as they're not that strong in center position. And Booker with 10.2 is also a good pick. That's why I kept him in my team. Veselin, not so good for price growing, but he might still score good. And few other guys actually were quite good. Sorry for the typo here. Obviously it's Oturu, not Oturus. So, but he actually might not score 17. So let's see about that. So therefore Oturu might drop his price. 10 best forwards by fantasy points average after round 10 are these guys at the moment. So Vezenkov, Mirotic, and Hayes Davis at the top. Fair few have good stats like Hayes Davis, LeDay, Moneke, and Trevion Williams from Alba. Otherwise, Dekerskis needs to score 15.6 not to drop price, Jalen Horde 9.7, and Vezenkov, he needs 19.4 as you saw earlier in the video. Good selection of forwards if you want to get not only fantasy points but also progress to your budget. And let's check the guards. Guards are actually Campazzo, Shorts, Maledon, and Punter in the top 4. Punter has the worst price growing stats, that's why we traded him. Otherwise, Shorts needs to score 19.3 not to drop his price, Campazzo 21.4. And Campazzo might not be that bad of a pick because Real Madrid will play against Alba, but I'm just afraid that Campazzo might not get so many minutes, especially if they will be crushing Alba, which is not so unlikely. So therefore, I would be careful when picking Campazzo, as he might not reach that simply because of limited minutes he would play against Alba, but therefore you guys should definitely evaluate the risk when picking Campazzo. Anan has good stats with 12.8, playing as Žalgiris, but probably he will get a lot of minutes because it will not be easy for Pavo in Kaunas and Žalgirio Arena. Tamir Blat is now back after injury with 18.2, he would not drop his price. And let's now go check players that are not necessarily best for fantasy points, but they for sure have the best price growing stats. We have these few centers that will not drop their price if they would score 0 fantasy points. Well, I put Bolomboy here just because he is still injured, but we don't know the exact date of his return. On the game of his return, if it will be in round 11, on round 12, he would have the same stats for his first game. He needs to score more than 1.5 fantasy points to keep growing in price, which is not so impossible because it's a very small number. Otherwise, Tariq Black needs to score 0.3 fantasy points or more not to drop his price. All these guys would grow with 0 fantasy points, so the more we score, the more the growth will be, especially for Milutinov, as he has a big save zone. Therefore, the more above 0 fantasy points he will score, the more he will get to your budget. Sardar Shanley also is good with -7, and Roman Sorkin with -3.5. When it comes to forwards, we have more that are good for price growing. Prochida is still good with his stats. With -35, he would not drop in price. But Rushev, you already saw. Trevion Williams, 10.6. LeDay, 10.4. Wetzel, if he plays, -7.7 is the safe zone for him not to drop price. Pokushevsky, -6.3. And Bayan Jaya from Asvel, -5.1. And Da Silva, -3.7. And for the guards, Evan Fournier is the best with -15.3. Cacer from Milan, -13.4. Andres Obst, -12, would not drop his price. Isaiah Keenan with -6.4 would still grow in budget. Well, if scores more than that, he would grow in budget. Madolov with -4 would still grow in price. And Gerard Grant needs to score more than 0.3 against Žalgiris not to drop his price. A few more guys that I wanted to mention earlier but forgot to do it is that Donatas Matiunas from Monaco, he needs to score 2.6 not drop in price, and Brandon Davis needs to score 3.5 fantasy points not to drop in price. I hope this information will help to build your lineups for round 11. Otherwise, for more content on EuroLeague Fantasy, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.